Hi, Dr. Ron here, and I want to invite you to join our Unstress Health community. Now, like this podcast, it's independent of industry and focuses on taking a holistic approach to human health and to the health of the planet. The two are inseparable. There are so many resources available with membership, including regular live Q&As on specific topics with special guests, including many with our amazing Unstress Health Advisory Panel. Now, we've done hundreds of podcasts, all worth listening to, with some amazing experts on a wide range of topics. Many are world leaders. But with membership, we have our Unstress Lab podcast series, where we take the best of several guests and carefully curate specific topics for episodes which are jam-packed full of valuable insights. So join the Unstress Health community. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, click on the link below or just visit unstresshealth.com to see what's on offer and join now. I look forward to connecting with you. Well, today we are exploring biohacking. Now, biohacking's a buzzword that you may have heard in past. It may have just been called being as healthy as you can be, but in this digital computer age, biohacking is the word that seems to get a lot of attention, and it's going to get attention over these next two episodes. My guest today, well, I have the pleasure of welcoming back Camilla Thompson, and I'm joined also by Azra Alagic. Now, Camilla has been a health coach and executive coach. She's also a certified nutritional coach. She studied epigenetics and neuroplasticity. We had her on talking about mold. She co-founded MoldSafe, a company that offers mold testing and remediation. That is a big topic. I'd encourage you to go back and listen to it if you haven't already. Now, Azra's background is in journalism, and apart from being a mother of three, she's had a keen interest in health and wellness for the past 10 years and has put her journalistic hat on and started researching the biohacking world. Now, both Camilla and Azra recently attended the 10th Annual Biohacking Conference hosted by the father of biohacking, Dave Asprey. Now, I think there's a lot in this episode, a lot of knowledge that and reporting on that conference. I hope you enjoy this conversation I had with Camilla Thompson and Azra Alagic. Welcome to the show, Camilla. Welcome to the show, Azra.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Listen, Camilla, we spoke a few episodes ago about mold and all of the implications of that. But since then, you have both attended a biohacking conference in the States. And I know biohacking is a buzzword in healthcare. I wondered, for those that weren't familiar with the term, what is biohacking?
Azra, are you going to go?
You're throwing to me. Well, so biohacking is very much about taking control of your own health and looking at your unique biology, because we're also bio-individual. The way I like to look at it is that you're taking control of your own health to optimize your health by implementing unique biohacks that are specifically for your body type. It's really important to understand, what your blood works are, what your baseline is, what your foundation is. But it really is proactive health management, Ron. That's what it comes down to. Instead of waiting to get sick, it's about trying to be, proactive and prevent any chronic diseases. We all want to live well longer, and it's really important that we optimize our health in order to do that, because none of us want to end up in an aged care facility, deteriorating away, becoming frail, losing mobility. So biohacking very much focuses on optimizing our health.
It's a real sign, isn't it, of our healthcare system that, and it's a really good thing that we're being encouraged, or this is an opportunity to take control of our own health. What an idea, huh? I mean,
yeah.
Because really our healthcare system isn't really about health, is it?
No, it definitely isn't about preventative health. I think there's Dave Asprey, whose conference we went to in Dallas. He calls it the art and science of becoming superhuman, which is an interesting angle. And I think the whole theme of the conference we went to was how to live to 180. And Azra and I will talk a bit more about that because it's a pretty bold and courageous statement. But a lot of the biohackers genuinely believe, I'm not sure if you've seen much in the media recently of Brian Johnson, who's reversed his age to 18, apparently. And I wouldn't want to be 18 again. But anyway, very interesting.
I have seen him.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure when I see an image of him, I feel all that inspired. I mean, I think he looks like a man that's obviously got a lot of money and has spent a lot of money. I think he's got a very young son too, a 17 or 18-year-old son. And I think when I look at his face, there's something quite frightening about it. And with all due respect to Brian, of course, I'm sure that's something a lot of people aspire to. What was you? Oh, actually, why don't we talk about that? I mean, 180, it is a big claim. We've done a program recently on Healthspan versus lifespan.
Great, yeah.
And I like that concept.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I want to live to 180 unless all my friends and family live at 180 years as well.
Yeah.
But a health span's a good thing to aspire to. What was tell us about the conference. Let's start with that. And what was it about? I mean, biohacking, I know, but tell us more.
Azra, do you want to start with your spin on it and then I'll go after?
Yeah. I agree with you in terms of the notion and the differences between lifespan and health span, because none of us want to live longer unless we're actually healthy, right? So sure, trying to achieve the target of 180 years of age, as was alluded to at the conference, might be a pie in the sky target, but you would not want to live to that age unless you're actually healthy and have all your facilities and mobility and so on in place. The biohacking conference was, a really great opportunity for us as two leading female biohackers in Australia and two of the only female biohackers in Australia to connect with like-minded people from around the world who are interested in proactive health management. And certainly there is the concept of extreme biohacking, but there's also, I think, it's important to note that one of the key takeaways from most of the keynote speakers was that the foundational biohacks of getting a good night's sleep, having good nutrition, getting exercise, managing stress to lower your cortisol levels, it was really important and highlighted at the conference that we ensure that we get the foundations right, because if we don't have the foundations right, anything above and beyond that, so if you look at it a three-phase approach from a biohacking perspective, phase one is the foundations, phase two was about looking at stepping up through supplementation perhaps, and then phase three looking at optimizing through using AI or through technology, but essentially you cannot achieve optimal health if you don't have the foundations right, because whatever supplement you take, you're actually not absorbing that at the nutrient level, and you just end up with expensive pee, right? So it's pointless. You really, really need to get those foundations right. So I think the biohacking conference, we had over 3,000 people attend, lots and lots of keynote speakers, which was great, looking at, I suppose, the holistic health management. From mindset through to exercise to sleep to looking at EMF and so on. So really lots of great technology as well that's coming out that we can do a bit of a deeper dive on later. But I think that it was a really great opportunity to learn from other people right across the world and also leading people in that field. Camilla, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things was around longevity was around oxytocin and the need for us to have more play in our lives and more love and cuddles and community and connection and sex and all these things that help. And what's interesting, I sort of recently learned this, but when our nervous systems are really dysregulated, it's very hard for us to produce oxytocin and serotonin and all the good dopamine. So I think coming back to what Azra was saying and those biohacking basics, those foundations are so important. And you can have all the technology in the world, but you have to get those basics right. And I think for me, I think we're moving away from, in Australia now, where well-being fatigue is a thing. I think the word well-being, people sort of roll their eyes at it now. It used to be mindfulness and it would be the eye roll in corporate, definitely. But I think biohacking is exciting here in Australia because it is new. It's backed by science. Some of it's very cutting edge. Some of it's, it's about self-experimentation. That's what biohacking is about, coming back to that bio-individuality, that, what works for me might not work for you, Ron. So it's about finding what works and experimenting. And, I normally get my clients to try something for a month. And if you feel better and it's working, then great, go for it. If not, we can course correct and try something else. But some of the extreme biohacking, I came away from the conference a bit overwhelmed by some of it. I was kind of thinking, it's almost become such an obsession for some. And, do you lose the art of actually living day to day when you're constantly striving for health? And I think there's a real tipping point around that. And so as much as it was amazing to hear all of these incredible speakers and doctors and scientists and look at these incredible technologies, I came away thinking, there's got to be a balance with actually living and not becoming so obsessed and anxious and neurotic about our health, because that creates stress in the body too.
Yes, I was going to say, we could be so stressed out about are we biohacking optimally or not. You talk about individuality, and I think that is a really interesting move in healthcare, personalized medicine.
Yep.
How do we personalize our needs?
Azra, do you want to answer?
Yeah, certainly. I'll jump in there. I attended a really interesting longevity conference at the National University of Singapore this year, which was focused on supplements and the role that supplements has in personalised medicine moving forward. And again, one of the key takeaways from that conference was the future of personalised medicine. And I think it comes down to what I alluded to earlier about really understanding, well, what is your baseline? And make sure that we're dealing with the facts in terms of our unique biology. So it's really important to get those blood works done, having that baseline data to work from. And from there, you can understand, well, what am I deficient in? What do I need support in? And work from there rather than guesswork, which a lot of biohackers tend to do. And it is part of the biohacking game that we do experiment with different types of supplements and different techniques and so on. But as a health coach, my advice is certainly that you need to work with data to understand what is your body doing, because it changes constantly, depending on epigenetics, depending on what we're eating, depending on what stress levels we're experiencing at any given time. So that personalized medicine approach is certainly the way of the future, and that's certainly what all the longevity experts are saying at these conferences.
Yeah, and I think the US as well, you can actually get targeted supplements. So they'll do lots of data, and then they'll actually put together a pack of what you need monthly, and then that gets reassessed every 3 to 6 months. I think, was it Viome? I think that was the guys that were there in Dallas. But yeah, so I think that'll be a big thing. I think that's where we'll start moving forward in Australia. It's interesting in Australia because we're only really talking about biohacking in the last sort of 12 months, but the conference we went to was the 10th annual conference, right? And in the space of 2 months, there's been 6 biohacking conferences globally. There was Singapore, Dallas, Austin, Japan, Helsinki, and London. So we are really behind in Australia. So, I mean, Azra and I are trying to sort of become the sort of forefront in that sort of thought leadership piece around biohacking. But yeah, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more happening in Australia, particularly around using AI and this personalized health and supplementation.
I know that personal devices is a great way of people gauging, well, their heart rates, how well they're sleeping, their heart rate variability, which is also a pretty good measure of how you respond to stress.
Yep.
What were some of the devices that were standouts in this conference in Dallas? And as I say that, I have to disclose that I have my Oura ring right here, and I've tried a Whoop thing, and but tell me what is, I've been there, done that.
Ron, you're one of the OG biohackers. I said this last time. I was like, you've been biohacking for years. Like, yeah.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because when I said, we're doing a program on biohacking, they said, what's bio? Well, I said, I think we used to call that being healthy, but it's sort of got a little more zippy title there now. But there's there is a lot more out there and a lot more available.
Yeah.
Isn't there?
What is some of the biohacking for years without realizing that we're doing it.
That's right.
But
it is become very, very well I want to say trendy, but it is trendy. And,
It is.
you know, we've got a lot of toys that we can play with. What are some of the toys that are useful that people could be playing with, and what would they learn from them?
Well, you've named one of them, the Aura Ring, and I think that the wearables are very popular and will continue to grow, and the technology will continue to improve. I wear a Whoop, which is another one that you mentioned, and through that, I was able to improve my sleep score significantly. When I first started wearing the Whoop, my sleep was terrible. I was scoring, in the amber numbers. Now I regularly get 100% sleep score as a result of implementing certain biohacks, like, looking at my melatonin levels, having a regular sleep routine, making sure that I'm reducing my impact to blue light, turning the lights off in the evening, and really signaling to the body that it's time to shut down. But some of the other technologies were just really mind-blowing over there. There was one that was called Immortal, which was this great bed that you lie on, and it's sort of been designed.
It was what? Sorry, Azra, say that I missed that.
It was Immortal is what it was called. So
Immortal.
So
Immortal.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's this bed that's designed like the NASA astronaut beds, in terms of the way it's designed, and it had red light therapy, and you're getting the better brainwave music coming through as well. And so it's this holistic approach to really managing cortisol levels and biohacking your body. There were other EMF technologies there, wearables that you would wear around your neck, or like a scarf and so on, that you could use to limit your EMF exposure. There were obviously, there was ozone therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. There was new technologies in terms of exercise as well that really target the muscle groups, enable you to reduce the amount of time that you exercise right down to as much as 15 minutes. I think Dave Asprey was saying that he does, in order to be able to stay toned and muscly. I can't remember the exact number of exhibitors that were there, but there was
a lot. There was Brain Tap. That was an interesting one. There was, I think, I don't know if you've caught up with Adam yet and talked about Shockwave, Ron. But,
no, we had to reschedule.
Okay, so that was...
tell us about Shockwave. What was that?
Well, so that was an interesting one. So that was the wasabi method, which is something that Dave Asprey and a friend of ours have partnered together, and that's shockwave therapy. So that's sort of attacking different pain in the body and inflammation in the body. I mean, that you had a treatment on that, didn't you, Azra? People were saying that it was amazing. They've been in pain for years. A woman with frozen shoulder, and then, she was fixed after one treatment. So, I mean, that was pretty amazing. How was your experience, Azra?
Yeah, you're spot on there. I had a shoulder issue, which I'd been struggling with for a few weeks leading up to the conference, and the long haul flight over exacerbated that. And so Adam kindly gave me a treatment, one treatment off the bed, and the pain was gone. I had greater movement in my shoulder. It definitely works. And it's, a great opportunity to be able to get on top of pain quickly and resolve that, rather than having to sit there with it for weeks and trying other treatment types.
So it was some form of radiation or some form of vibration?
It's sound. So it's sound, yeah. So it's shockwave's nothing new. Like, it's been around for a long time. Like, a lot of these technologies, a lot of them aren't new, but they're being kind of repurposed, rebranded. There's more research and science behind them. So some of them were a little bit woo-woo before, and now they're going, actually, no, they're really credible. There's been a lot of data. There's a lot of data and a lot of science behind them. We loved was it the hydrogen one, the Nano V? That was amazing. That you really felt a difference with that.
I felt a huge difference with that. It's like a protein folding method that they have through inhaling the oxygen. And I came away from that feeling so mentally sharp, so mentally clear, had such a great night's sleep that night, and energetically as well. it was just mind-blowing how much more energy I had over the coming days as a result of that. So for me, that worked really well. And, I think it's about, oxygenation in the blood as well, and really getting that through. And you can do that through, hyperbaric oxygen treatments as well. So there's a number of treatments out there and different technologies that you can utilize. But that was certainly one of the best that I've had.
But, yeah.
I know. Yeah, go
No,
on.
I was
go
going
on,
to say the
Camilla.
hyperbaric chamber was weird. That was the first time I did one, and it was like being in an aeroplane, like the popping, and it was a really interesting experience. But I mean, the reason why I got into biohacking was because, as we talked about before, I lived in mold for so many years and got told by every doctor that there was nothing wrong with me and it was all in my head. And so I had to start looking at all these alternative different therapies and technologies to help me heal. And saunas was probably, this infrared sauna has been life-changing,
Yes.
potentially life-saving. Actually, they're just incredible. And at the conference there was a big theme on saunas, wasn't there, Azra?
Really?
Everyone talked about it. A lot of the doctors talked about saunas. Dr. Will Cole, who we absolutely loved, he was really the benefits of saunas and cryotherapy.
Tell us about, listen, this is music to my ears, because literally outside my office here, down one end I have an ice bath and the other end I have an infrared sauna. So
Perfect.
I'd love to hear more about the beauty and the benefits of infrared sauna.
Love that. Well, I've got infrared sauna as well, and the studies show that it can reduce your mortality rate by anywhere between 40 to 70% if you're having an infrared sauna 4 times a week. It really helps with metabolic disease. It helps improve mitochondria. It helps improve circadian rhythms. Unfortunately, so many of us live in an urban environment, and we're not getting enough vitamin B. We're not getting enough infrared light, and this is an opportunity to use infrared saunas to be able to balance that out and leverage off the health benefits in the long term.
What temperatures were they suggesting at, and for how long?
It's around, I think 30 minutes is your minimum. And I think it's around 60 to 65, isn't it, from a temperature perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and a minimum 3 times a week if you can. I mean, I've got one in my garage. I've had one for years because it was the only thing that made me feel better when I was living in mold, because obviously it was helping my body to detox. So it's a brilliant for your skin, for detox, but also your mood. And it's, there's so much research now into cold therapy and how that helps with mental health. Yeah. There is a caveat with cold therapy. We've got to be careful with these ice baths. And this is something that Azra and I are really passionate about as well, is that, yes, we try these different things, but we've got to come at it with a safety lens as well. Certain times of the month, women shouldn't be doing ice baths because of their hormones. Okay. Also, if you're running really high on cortisol and adrenaline, particularly women, they can actually trigger a lot of issues. So we need to be careful with going into really cold temperatures, and it should be guided really. But there are, people are hyperventilating if you're not breathing properly. So, you turning up on the beach and just jumping in an ice bath, sometimes it's not the best unless you've done some training in it. I love a cold shower. Like it's, put your shower on cold every morning. I do it every morning. It's a really great option that's really safe.
Yes. And temperature of that, depending on the season, of course, is quite like, it might be down to about 10 degrees, the cold water coming out. It might be in the summer up to about 18 degrees. But when you think body temperature is 36 point something, then it's still
great.
A shock.
Yeah.
It's still enough,
lowering,
isn't it?
Just getting in the ocean in winter, that's your ice bath.
Yeah,
we've got a permanent biohack in Australia. I mean, we're so lucky. We've got, we really do. And I think because we get more vitamin D than a lot of other countries, that really helps. Except we're all so scared of the sun now, which is crazy.
I was going to say, part of the problem there was the demonization of this wonderful thing called sun, the sun.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that was covered. What did they talk about there in terms of sun exposure?
Yeah, it was definitely raised around the concerns that we're not getting sufficient sun exposure. It was also raised around the risks of constantly lathering our bodies in sunscreen,
toxic,
and the detrimental health benefits associated with that as well. And certainly most of the keynote speakers that talk to that particular topic were advocating to not use sunscreen because of the toxicity associated with it and the potential cancer links with it as well. It's about being sensible about your exposure to the sun. And the times that you're out being exposed to the sun. There's a really great app called D-Minder, so the letter D, Minder, which can track your exposure to the sun and ensuring that you're getting adequate levels of vitamin D. Of course, you can supplement as well with vitamin D, but it's much better if you can get it naturally, from the sun.
Get the real deal, yeah.
Yeah, and you feel great, lying out
you
there.
You do.
Well.
Everybody does, don't they? I mean, you're out in the sun, it's energizing. I mean, it's this whole thing. And actually, I think the science is pretty clear that it actually improves all-cause mortality significantly.
And coming back to mood again, it makes you feel better. But I think there are some great natural sunscreens out there now. There really are. Like, there's no reason for us. I mean, it does upset me, and this is controversial, but people like the Cancer Council providing sunscreens that are full of so many chemicals, and they cause cancer. And so it's completely and utterly counterproductive. So I think, just using natural sunscreen is a really good option, but we need the
What's
sun.
an example of a natural sunscreen?
I use one. There's a great brand in Perth that I use, which I can't remember the name now. This is called Perimenopause. That's another podcast we can do, Ron. It's on menopause and perimenopause. Okay. The brain and remembering. It will come to me. Oh, feel good something. Anyway, we'll put it in the notes, the show notes. Yep. Okay. But that's a great brand. I use that one, and that's really low tox. So it's about trying to. There was a big thing on environmental toxins. That was huge. Our water, and I know that's been in the media quite a bit in Australia. Is about certain areas. I know on the Central Coast, our water is awful. It's just so chlorinated because we've got so many bugs. So I have a whole house water filter on my house. I have reverse osmosis on my sink, and alkaline water, and my showers, my baths, everything's filtered because that's really important.
Yeah, no, the water issue is one that we've talked about on this program before, and the whole story around, water fluoridation is another story which I think is a shocker.
Well, you're not a dentist.
And I'm a dentist. But that's just the least of it, because there are a lot of other chemicals that are of concern in the water. I, similarly to you, Camilla, have a whole house water filter and reverse osmosis on the sink, and then I just put a few grains of Himalayan rock salt into that, because you are almost drinking like distilled water. Yeah. And I'm not sure that's a good thing in itself.
Yeah, so, I had Celtic sea salt.
Yes.
But the environment was a big focus, especially the air, how polluted our air is, even inside our homes, to make sure that we're filtering our air properly and we're ventilating. There was a big focus on mold. So a lot of the US is US is so ahead of us when it comes to mold and biohacking and all these things. They've been there, done it, got multiple T-shirts. But they talked a lot about mold, the environment, toxins. I mean, women, we're exposed to 168 chemicals a day. That's double what men are exposed to. I mean, that's an average number. And I don't know I'm sure you've just seen the recent thing around tampons and the fact they've found arsenic and all these chemicals in tampons. So women, we are just being constantly, whether it's makeup or sanitary, whatever it might be, we're just being exposed to toxins all the time. So we really do need to think about how we reduce them down.
And again, there's apps, there's really great apps that you can use as well to be able to scan the product and understand, what is the toxic load. It'll give you either a green, result indicating that it's okay to use, or or an amber or a red result, indicating that it's got too many toxins in it, and then it will list out what are those toxins in the product.
Do you have a suggestion or name of
those? It's called
that
Yuki,
kind of
YUKI,
and it's
a carrot.
Say again?
It's a random carrot. Why is it a carrot? It's so weird.
Hang on. Say that again slowly, Azra.
Yuki, YUKI. And so I went through my whole house with this app and scanned everything that had a barcode on it. And if it wasn't
quite
green,
scary.
It went out, and I threw a lot out.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't realize.
Hi, Dr. Ron here, and I want to invite you to join our Unstress Health community. Now, like this podcast, it's independent of industry and focuses on taking a holistic approach to human health and to the health of the planet. The two are inseparable. There are so many resources available with membership, including regular live Q&As on specific topics with special guests, including many with our amazing Unstress Health Advisory panel. Now, we've done hundreds of podcasts, all worth listening to, with some amazing experts on a wide range of topics. Many are world leaders. But with membership, we have our Unstress Lab podcast series, where we take the best of several guests and carefully curate specific topics for episodes which are jam-packed full of valuable insights. So join the Unstress Health community. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, click on the link below or just visit unstresshealth.com to see what's on offer and join now. I look forward to connecting with you. We kind of make assumptions that if it's on the shelf in a supermarket, of course it's been tested. How could it possibly get there?
We put our faith in the fact that whatever is being sold to us is safe for us to use, and that is not necessarily the case. I walk into a supermarket now and I cringe because I think, well, there's probably 95% here that I would not put into my body or put on my body because most of it is full of toxins. It's bad for us. It's, manufactured, it's processed. I aim to always make sure that I go to the local farmers market and purchase, whole foods, organic whole foods to reduce my toxic load because, you've got epigenetics, you've got environment, you're getting exposed to EMF. So we really need to work hard these days to reduce our toxic load, as Camilla well knows. And I had mercury poisoning, which, not long after COVID, after I had COVID and became really quite unwell, and ended up finding out that it was due to that. And I had no idea where it was coming from. I didn't have mercury fillings. I don't eat too much seafood because I don't like a lot of seafood. So it was really baffling to me as to where it came from, which is why I started to look at all the products in the house.
Yeah, we are being poisoned, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the health system.
They want us to be sick. They don't really want us to be.
I mean, good health, a theme we have on this podcast, good health may make sense, but it doesn't make dollars.
Yep.
And sadly, it is a business. I love that. Yuki and Deminder, they're really useful things. You mentioned EMF as well. Boy, that's a challenge. How would you advise people? What are some biohacks there to minimize your EMF?
Well, I might just jump in on this one, Azra, because it's one I'm so passionate about. When you have mold poisoning or SIRS, you're very susceptible. EMF can actually cause a lot more damage in the body when you've been exposed to mold. So it's a big thing for me.
Now, hang on, Camilla. SIRS is CIRS.
Yes,
give us
chronic inflammation, response syndrome. So it's a biotoxin illness. So your body becomes so sensitive to the energy and EMF. Like I always have my Wi-Fi off at night. It's non-negotiable.
Whole house
off.
Switch off.
Yep, whole house every night. And then my phone's always on airplane mode. I make sure everything like printers, like anything that could be emitting any Bluetooth or Wi-Fi is turned off in the house. When I sleep, if it isn't, I can wake up and I'm tingling and I know something's been left on. That's how sensitive I am. Well, my son thinks I'm like tinfoil hat weirdo, but it's real. It's real. And I think this comes into an interesting one with biohacking, and this is something that Azra and I have talked about as well on her podcast, is, some of these wearables and things that we've got on us, they are also Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And yes, Aura Ring's great, but I've actually watched a YouTube video with a guy doing the testing on it, and at times it's chucking out quite a lot. Absolutely. So I always recommend do it for a month. You don't need to wear these things all the time, and you don't need to sleep with them all the time. Like, do it for a few weeks or a month. Get some data, do some testing, and then give your body a break. Because there were some interesting things at the conference. There was necklaces, as I think you mentioned as well, as with scarves and blankets that help protect us from EMFs. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you about those devices because I love gadgets. And I've had them all, I buy them all. And I know that with the Aura Ring, we got to the point where when I would wake up in the morning, my wife would say, "How did you sleep?" And I'd go, "Just hang on a sec." And I had to go, and she's, no, stop.
Just how did you sleep?
Just tell me how you slept,
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think they're great for a short period of time to get a baseline, back to your original point, Azra, about finding your baseline. But to wear them constantly, I think they're stressful.
Yeah. And even
for many reasons,
even the Apple Watch, I know, have you got one, Azra? I know that people, you've got a Garmin, yeah, but with the Apple Watch, when it's buzzing and phoning people and texting and calling and it's on your wrist and you can't get it, not only is it constant spiking of adrenaline and stress because you're constantly being pinged, but also it's, there's a real balance, I think, with these
But you're on all the time as well when you're wearing these wearables.
Yeah,
This
constantly
is the thing.
contactable. It's like, bugger off.
I know as part of a gym challenge that I did, that's when we got our Whoops. And there were a number of people that within the first couple of weeks decided that they would not wear a Whoop anymore because they found that it made them more stressed because of the results they were getting. They were agonizing over their results. They were so concerned about the fact they were stressing about the fact that they couldn't sleep because the Whoop was telling them that they weren't sleeping properly. So it was just this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them just opted to say no.
But I think, to Camilla's point, and I agree with you on this, I think they have a place as a way of personalising your health and creating a baseline. I agree with you. Do it for a couple of weeks, record what you found, take it off, make the changes for 6 months, and maybe put it on again for a week or two and see how you're going. But don't take it serious because it's so stressful.
Yeah, it takes over. And it's that always on thing as well. And we're always tracking. And I think that's something we came away from the conference. Like Dave Asprey takes about, I think it was like 170 supplements a day, right? Yes. And I'm like, okay, you eat the best food in the world. You're eating amazing beef, right? Grass-fed beef, steak, which is what he eats. Like that's pretty much his staple diet, and nitrate-free bacon and a few other bits. But he's eating a really good diet. He's doing all these amazing technologies. He's got all this stuff in his house and all in his labs and stuff. So why do you need to take 170 supplements if you've got all those basics and foundations right? I think it's extreme. Tim Gurner's the same. So if we bring it back to Australia, and Tim Gurner, who's Melbourne guy, he owned Gurner. He's a lot in the media at the moment. He's set up a longevity space in Melbourne. But he's spent so much money and so much time. And these millionaires and billionaires, they have all the money, all the time in the world, and they can spend 6 hours a day biohacking. And I love Azra calls it the cereal bowl of supplements. But, it's like, what is it? Cheerios or like Fruit Loops. It's like a bowl of Fruit Loops. But I'm like, I don't get it. If you're doing all the foundations and you've got those biohacking basics right, yes, some supplements we absolutely need. There's Azra and I take various supplements, and we're massive fans and supporters of them. But it's extreme again, and can it be good for your gut? How are we? I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. There's another biohacker, Nick. I can't remember his surname, but he was on that recent
the Channel 9,
Channel 9 program. And he went overseas to Mexico, if I recall correctly, to spend $700,000 on getting gene therapy, which gave him, I think it was something like a 7% improvement in overall muscle in his body. I'm thinking, you can achieve that through just exercise. Why would you pay $700,000 when you can achieve that through exercise?
Doesn't make sense, some of it. I think the stem cell piece is really interesting, Ron, and we had some good chats about that at the conference. We met a few doctors there and we talked about it. And there was a company there called Stem Regen, and they've created, actually I've got it on my desk because have you finished yours, Azra?
No, I haven't finished it.
So this is called Release, and this this helps the bone marrow to release new stem cells. So it's using our own body to do that. And there's colostrum in there, and I think it's buckthorn berry and a few other elements to that. So rather than having to go to Mexico or Thailand or Dubai or Japan or wherever it is and do the stem cell therapy, this is something new that people are trying. So it's using a supplement to help produce more stem cells. So it's interesting, but I think there's some really extreme practices out there.
But I also think that stem cell therapy and peptides have a place in regenerative medicine in particular. So my husband has been suffering from a bad knee for months and months and months, had tried everything. The next option, according to Western medicine, was to get surgery. And I said to him, look, go to this functional medical practitioner, try some peptides, let's see if that works first. And sure enough, it's working, And I have another friend who had major shoulder issues after a gym injury, went to Bangkok to get his stem cell therapy there. He came back thinking, it hasn't worked. I said to him, look, give it some time. It's only a couple of months. And, it's been, 4 months or so. And it's kicked in, and he's coming back to gym.
It's incredible. And peptides, but we're being, there's been another peptide banned by the TGA in Australia. Like they don't want us to have access to some of these things. And these peptides are amazing. Like some of what they do. I actually had a friend that went to Thailand to do stem cell full body replacement, and she has the double Alzheimer's gene. Both her parents had it, and they were like, you're guaranteed you're going to get it. So she went and did stem cell, and she's managed to reverse. So she's reversed all of this gene. So it really does have its place, as fecal transplants, which is another amazing thing. I mean, the science behind that is just incredible with what that's doing. Yeah,
they talked about that there as well, fecal transplants.
They didn't, but it's something I've been sort of, a few people I know have had them, and it's just been incredible with what it's done. It can reverse so many different things, particularly mental health.
That was Professor Tom Barodi here in Sydney has been doing that for some time, and I happen to know he was really at the forefront at the beginning of COVID. Not with fecal transplants, but with a protocol for treating COVID very successfully and very simply as well. Yeah. So, those kind of things. Methylene blue is another one.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about methylene blue. I have this image, Camilla, of you poking your tongue out on your website. It was a bit... It's still haunting.
I'm methylene blued up. I'm dressing for it. I felt like a Smurf. They gave us too much, so we took too much of it. So I had blue gums and a blue tongue for 3 days, and I was weeing blue, which lovely. So I literally felt like I turned into a Smurf. How about you, Azra?
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that the dose that we were given was just a little bit on the high side. I've taken methylene blue on and off for some time now, and there's various ways that you can take it. You can take it in drops. You can take it as a troche, which I prefer to take, so it dissolves under the tongue. When I take it predominantly if I have got a big piece of work that I'm needing to focus on, or a presentation where I've really got to be performing at a high cognitive level, and so I find that really sharpens my mind. But it's also shown to improve mitochondrial function as well, enhance oxygen utilization, ATP production. So there's some significant benefits, and this is science-backed as well. Methylene blue has been around for many, many years. It's a safe product, and it's worthwhile trying. But, make sure that you take it under the advice of your functional medical practitioner.
I think combining it also with red light therapy is shown to enhance it as well. But I agree. I have taken methylene blue. I have the troches, and the chopping board that I cut the troche in half on is still stained blue. So you do have to be a little bit careful with it. But I think it has some other things. Forest bathing is one that I thought I was intrigued by. We've done programs on the power of being in nature. Is that what forest bathing is? What is forest bathing?
Azra, are you going to
look, it's one of my favourites. I love forest bathing. I love hugging trees. We're both tree huggers.
We're tree huggers. Tinfoil hat tree huggers.
Again, it's about utilising nature at its best to be able to reduce cortisol levels. There's been significant studies and research that's been done around this that shows that it reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, it boosts immune function and improves mood. And the reason being is when you go out and you're taking a walk in the forest, or you're sitting there in the forest, you are able to focus more on all the senses. And so it brings in that mindfulness practice. The recommendation is to go for a walk for 2 hours to be able to get the benefits, in terms of forest bathing. But we don't all have that time. So for me, coming home, I'll just go outside and walk barefoot on the front lawn to ground myself. If I can't do that, or if I can't go for a walk in the forest, I've got a grounding mat that I use as well. I'm actually standing on it right now, so that when I'm at my desk, I've got a grounding mat, and that helps to ground me as well. So it gives you the similar benefits. But there are so many great benefits out of forest bathing. Really helps the sympathetic nervous system, and
Yeah, and the Japanese are who kind of first sort of really started doing a lot of this. They actually have programs. So they have forest bathing programs where people go out into the forest. They also, Korea are doing a lot as well. They put in loads of money into this. And what they do as well, if there's children that are sort of juveniles that are misbehaving, they'll send them out to forest bathe for a week and tents and camping. And that's part of a rehabilitation program as well that they've been doing in Korea. And so I think it's, we're very lucky in Australia again, where we're surrounded by such beautiful natural beauty. But going back, the senses piece is really important. So when we look at our brain as a network, we're often just toing and froing from doing and thinking. So we're in that to-do task part of our brain, or we're in that default mode part of the brain where we're just constantly internalizing, ruminating, thinking. But when we're in nature, we're just being. And we're connecting with our senses. And that's when that's the only time we can switch off from thinking and doing. So it's so important because we're not spending enough time in that part of our brain, in that sensory network. So, really important.
No, music to my ears. I mean, that is really, it's so true.
Yeah.
Listen, it's been good to connect and talk about biohacking. And we'll, of course, have links to both your sites. But if you had to leave our listener with, who's heard this and going, I think this could be something I want to explore, what would you say to somebody getting started? What would be 2 or 3 hints from each of you about how a person can get started in biohacking?
You go, Camilla?
You go. Oh, go on. Put the pressure on me first, then you've got time to think. So look, one of my favorite, I've got a couple, I'll share some of my top 3 sort of biohacks. Maybe that's So one of my ones is to be a plant, right? That's one of my favorite biohacks. Is plants photosynthesize, they need sunlight, they need water, and they need air, and that's how they get energy and grow. So as humans, we need the same. So be a plant, take a 5-minute micro break, get outside, do some breath work, get some sunshine, drink some water. In your water comes my second favorite biohack, which is Celtic sea salt. This has been a game changer for me. When you have mold in your body, it takes all of your moisture. So when we just drink regular water, we don't often hydrate properly. So our body is made up of water and salt. We're just like the ocean inside. So when we actually hydrate with water and salt, and it's got to be good quality salt, my recommendation is Celtic sea salt. It's the cleanest salt. Or if we're in Australia, pink Murray is great as well, the pink Murray salt. That helps our body to hydrate. So it gets the water into our cells. So be a plant, hydrate properly. Start by doing, I think infrared saunas are a really good place to start. They're so accessible nowadays. So infrared saunas and cold showers, that would be a good place to start. But looking at your nutrition, I know Azra will want to talk about nutrition. Go on, over to you. Because I know this is
They're great. I have to say, I love that, Camilla. I mean, be a plant. I love that.
Yeah,
sun and earth.
Yeah.
We need a lot more of that. And water, music to my ears. Go on, Azra. Give us
completely agree with all the ones that Camilla
has
just said, and I certainly do all of those. But yes, I think nutrition is key to foundational health. We need to be really aware of what we're putting into our body, making sure that we're aiming for whole foods, organic where possible. Really be aware of where you're getting your food from, because if you're getting pesticides, and other toxins on your food, then that can have such an impact on your gut health, which then has a further impact on your overall health, right up to cognition and so on. So it's really important to ensure that you're aware of where your nutrition is coming from. I'm a big advocate of making sure you get significant protein as well, because for women in midlife, like myself, getting sufficient protein is really important. So aim for 30 grams of protein per meal. is really the target of what we should be trying to achieve. Sleep is another one, because without good night's sleep and quality sleep and making sure that you are able to heal at that cellular level through regenerative sleep, everything else that you do in biohacking is not going to work.
Superfluous,
absolutely superfluous. So it's really important to get a good night's sleep. And for me as well, looking at supplements as needed. I take NMN supplement. I think that NAD is really crucial for cellular energy, DNA repair, because you can't necessarily get that elsewhere. So I think that's a really great option as well, and one of my favourite hacks to do.
I love NMN. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, you've mentioned NAD and NMN. Just tell us a little bit more about those two, because actually I did want to ask you about it.
Yeah, well, NAD is a molecule that we produce, and when we hit 40, we unfortunately stop producing as much. And Azra, jump in and correct me if I'm not spot on this, but so NAD is a molecule. I call it like the elixir of youth. It's what keeps us young. It's what keeps our memory functioning, our metabolism doing what it should do, and our energy levels at a place, and also our cognitive function. So we start declining in producing NAD as we hit 40, and it just gets sort of more and more depleted. So there's some precursors to NAD, so things like resveratrol. That's why we've obviously heard a lot about that in the last few years. We find that in red wine, but unfortunately, newsflash, we're not going to get enough resveratrol drinking wine, and if we do, we're going to be drunk, and it's not good for us. So yeah, supplementing with some of the precursors. So NMN is one, NR is another one, resveratrol is another precursor. Women tend to respond better to NMN for some reason. They've just released a lot of that research. I started taking it about 15 months ago, and it's game changer. Like, my brain was so alive, and my energy, and you don't get that afternoon slump. My metabolism started working much better. Azra, what else do you want to add on that?
Look, you've hit all of the main points, but I agree in particular on the energy. For me, when I did a little bit of a test, because I stopped taking NMN for a while, in order to see whether it really was the NMN that was giving me those amazing energy levels. And my energy levels went down significantly. And and I stopped taking it for probably a couple of months just to make sure it got out of my system. And then I started taking it again, and wow, the difference that I had energetically once I started taking NMN again, it was just mind-blowing. They say to take it with resveratrol, and they say also to mix it with the resveratrol, to mix it with some yogurt to activate it. Whether that is, actually works or not, I don't know, but that's a little hack that many biohackers do. And they say to take the two together, resveratrol and NMN.
It is amazing. I can't recommend it enough.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing that passion and that advice about biohacking and taking. There's so much we can do, and we'll have links to both your sites. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
So good, Ron. It was lovely to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks, Azra.
Well, there's a few things in that episode that I thought I would just remind you of, in case you missed it. One is an app that I think is worth getting. It's called DMinder, all one word. And it's a way of tracking the sun and tells you when you can get your most vitamin D. Now, interestingly, that vitamin D comes when the sun is at about 35 degrees to the horizon. So if it's higher than 35 degrees to the horizon, you're going to get vitamin D. Now, isn't that interesting? Our health authorities tell us to stay out of the sun in the middle of the day, and it could go some way to explaining why we have a global epidemic, anyway, a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D, which is critical to absolutely every cell in our body and implicated in every disease. Vitamin D deficiency will predispose you to cardiovascular disease, and that's heart disease, stroke, also cancer. It predisposes you to every single disease. So the advice to stay out of the midday sun is a way of saying, do not try to get vitamin D from nature. And this is a theme that we've explored on this podcast and will continue to explore, the way we have demonized this thing called the sun, which literally has given us life on Earth. And yet we are told our devices and all the Wi-Fi radiation are perfectly safe. It's another example of some really poor public health messages. And if you're a member of the Unstress Health community, we go into that in a lot more detail. So the D-Minder app is definitely worth getting and a real eye-opener to where you can naturally source vitamin D from the sun. Another app that I think Azra mentioned was Yuka, Y-U-K-A, and it deciphers product labels and analyzes the health of those products. So it's a really interesting product. All products aren't included on it, but it is a real eye-opener and a really quick thing to do. Now, another thing that was mentioned was NAD, which is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, NAD. It's a coenzyme central to metabolism. It's found in all cells. It's important in energy transport, in the electron transport chain. Another thing that was mentioned was NMN, which is a derivative of B3. It stands for, NMM stands for nicotinamide mononucleotide, NMN, but it's also, all of these things are very closely related to vitamin B, particularly B3. So B3 is implicated in so many, it's such an important nutrient. It comes in nicotinamide and nicotinic acid. Now, when you take B3 as a niacin or nicotinic acid, you might get a flush. And when we did that episode with Ross Walker, cardiologist Ross Walker, he mentioned that as a useful supplement. And it's certainly been implicated in a lot of mental health issues used for the treatment of schizophrenia and a few other mental health issues. So this is this NAD, NMN, B3 story there as well. Look, biohacking, there's a lot there. There's a lot of great devices that you can get involved with, but let's not forget that one of the most important biohacks you can do is get out in the sun, see the early morning sun with your sunglasses off and with as much skin exposed so that you can get your circadian rhythm switched on. Get out in the midday sun so that you can get your vitamin D level. So if your shadow, one way of looking at it is, if the shadow is longer than you, then you probably aren't going to get vitamin D. Don't get burnt. Yes, that's an important message, but to demonize the sun, crazy. Another one of the examples of being good for a great economic model, but not a very good health model, and public health advice seems to be geared towards the economic model rather than the health model. So sleep is another one, a great biohack, sleep. Getting out and doing exercise, what a great biohack that is. Doing some meditation, resting, a whole lot of other great biohacks, but it was good to touch base with Camilla and Azra to get a kind of an insight into this world of biohacking. We're going to be doing another episode with Dr. Adam Gavin on shock therapy. That's coming up real soon. I hope this finds you well. Until next time, this is Dr. Ron Ehrlich. Be well. Feeling stressed, overwhelmed? It's time to unstress your life. Join the Unstress Health community and transform stress into strength. Build mental fitness. From self-sabotage to self-mastery. And together, let's not just survive, but thrive. Expert-led courses, curated podcasts, like-minded community and support, and much more. Visit unstresshealth.com today. This podcast provides general information and discussion about medicine, health, and related subjects. The content is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice or as a substitute for care by a qualified medical practitioner. If you or any other person has a medical concern, he or she should consult with an appropriately qualified medical practitioner. Guests who speak in this podcast express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions.